I'm now joined in Prague by Tomáš Prouza, chairman of the Czech Chamber of Commerce and former Minister for European Affairs. And with the Czech Republic now at political crossroads, we'll discuss what this election means for the economy, now coalition politics, and the country's role in the EU and NATO. Thank you so much for having us at your office.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Andrej Babiš told me yesterday that coalition governments have been a major problem for the Czech Republic. So, and that just like Donald Trump in the United States, he wants to change that. But what is your take on that?
I think he would love that, and actually he did. The last time Mr. Babiš was the Prime Minister, he had a minority government. And keep in mind, he's a businessman, and he did a lot of business in Northern Africa. So I think when he looks at the world, he sees a bazaar in Marrakesh. And this is actually how he ruled. He was cutting taxes with the central right parties, and then he was increasing social benefit with the communists. So for him, it was very effective because he was delivering to everybody. But the problem is now we're paying all the debts he has made because he spent everything he could and he didn't care about the revenues.
So having that in mind, why people still vote for him, knowing that, well, all the debts were made during his time in power?
Because you don't see the debts, your children, your grandchildren will, but what people see today, of course, how much cash they have in their hands. And Andrej Babiš gave them a lot of money during the COVID crisis. He promises them even more money. He promises he will cancel the very light pension. I would not even call it reform, but slow pension changes. He even promises he'll get rid of that. He promises a lot of money into the healthcare. So people love that. They love the promises. But they also remember that last time he actually gave them that money he promised.
Mm-hmm. But what kind of reforms do you expect the new government to pursue? For example, I mean, we do know that the finance minister has already tabled a draft budget with a 286 billion crown deficit. But do you see it significantly revised in the future? Do you think that Babiš will even tackle it?
No, I think if there is a Babiš government, and it's still if there is a Babiš government, I think at the end we'll see much higher deficits. Mm-hmm. Because so far, when you get the debt of the Czech Republic and the deficits, they are still pretty low. So we can still borrow reasonably well. Not as cheap as in the past, but still reasonably well. And that will be something Mr. Babiš will play, that he can borrow more money, he can spend them. And given his age, again, if he's a prime minister, it's probably for the last time. And he's old enough to probably see this as his last chance to make a mark on the Czech Republic. So I think he'll spend all the money he can and he'll disregard what happens 10 years down the road.
And we do know that if Babiš is unable to govern alone, and we still do some hypotheses here, obviously, but who do you see most likely for his coalition partners? I mean, especially given that despite his rhetoric, he's not a serious skeptic, as some people assume, considering that his companies, for instance, remain tied to the EU markets.
Exactly. Again, I don't see him partnering with those who want to have a referendum on Czechia or Czechia in NATO. But again, he never cared much about foreign policy. As you see his blunders, that he would say one day he would not help Poland if Poland was attached. Next week he says he loves Poland, he would do everything he could. He doesn't care about foreign politics. He cares about being loved and making sure his businesses remain viable and his businesses keep receiving government subsidies.
So speaking of that, because I wonder, do you think that Babiš would be willing or even able now to fully distance himself from, say, his company that is his jewel, Agrofert, if he were to return to power?
I think it's absolutely impossible. Agrofert and Mr. Babiš are two in one. And yes, he might have some legal arrangements like he tried last time when he put his wife in the chairmanship of the blind trust. So it's not much of a blind trust if your wife is running it.
Because I know that the president said that if anything might happen, if he would come back to power, then Mr. Babiš would have to answer for Agrofert itself.
Exactly. So I think everything is on the table. I'm sure he has legal arrangements prepared. The question is whether they will be sufficient. Also, I think you see that compared to 6 or 7 years ago, even Brussels is now much more careful about the conflicts of interest. So maybe things that the European Commission turned a blind eye at the previous Babiš government, they would not turn the blind eye anymore. Also, I think because you see there's a lot of questions in Brussels about Mr. Babiš. I think they understand he will not be as pro-Kremlin as Viktor Orbán. But they worry that again, he might slow things down, block some of them, because his mindset is much of a businessman. He needs to win, and I think for European politics, he doesn't understand the value of a compromise. For him, if you would come from Brussels and said, okay, I achieved a compromise, which in most countries means you actually won, he would see it as losing.
So how do you see now, if, let's say, it happens, how would you see the relationship between Brussels and Czech Republic now evolving if now Babiš would receive that much of vote?
I think, again, I don't assume Czechia blocking things like Mr. Orbán or Mr. Fico do, but I think Mr. Babiš would be very anti-Green Deal, or at least anti-climate change reforms. He would be much more careful about assisting Ukraine. Again, I don't see he would block it, but he would ask questions, ask for more studies, postpone the discussions. And also he would be among the toughest ones on migration reform, which unfortunately for this country also means maybe blocking many of the Ukrainians who found a new home here. And economically we're actually very happy to have the Ukrainians here. But if they start leaving, that would also mean huge economic problems for our businesses.
And when we look at the situation now, turning tables, if Spolu coalition wins, what do you think might change? What reforms are coming next?
I would hope that that will mean they learned a lesson, because I think they wasted these 4 years. There have been almost no reforms. It has been very slow, very confusing. In the longer term, we really need to open up the Czech labor market. It is almost impossible to hire and fire. Especially many startups simply say, well, we don't want to start a business here. We'd rather do it somewhere where it's easier to bring people in, but also get rid of them. And pension and healthcare will be two big challenges. The pension reform, of course, is in a deficit. But also for the first time last year, the healthcare system ended up in a deficit. It has never happened in the past. So again, we need, significant modernization there.
And which smaller party do you think now gains momentum and is a surprise, let's say, of this election?
The last opinion polls were putting up the Pirate Party up to the front.
Is it because of the debate, or?
I think it's because people are looking for an alternative. They still don't want to vote for Mr. Babiš or for the crazy leftist people, but they also lost the trust in the current government. From the Pirates is something in the middle. I think they don't see much of what is inside. They don't care much about politics. For them, the Pirates and maybe the Mayor's Party are the two options when it's something in the middle you can pretty much live with if they don't want to go for any of the extremes.
So do you think that now the Pirates are central liberal? Are they able to now, are they working long term now to gain voters, for instance, in 10 years' time to work with the youngest, let's say, generation of voters in order to change the system? Now, Ano Spolu, is it even possible?
I think they have that narrative, but actually they had the same narrative at the previous election. And 4 years ago, maybe minus 3 months before the election, it looked like the Pirates will be one of the leading parties. In the end, they only had four MPs in the parliament out of 200. So again, in the end, they did quite badly. But at the same time, you're absolutely right. They are the only wind of change among the current political scene. So especially the young people, if they come to vote, and that is a big if, because the younger people have always the lowest attendance, then many of them opt for the Pirates.
And when it comes to the economic front, do you think that the premises of lowering the retirement age and cutting taxes are realistic, made by Mr. Babiš, or are they simply campaign slogans? I know that's an obvious question, but I really need to ask this.
That's, of course, is campaign slogan. It's a beautiful promise people will love, and I think Mr. Babiš will forget these promises tomorrow at 2 p.m. when the polling stations close, because it's impossible to fulfill those. You know, the economy, the pension system is in deep debt. It's getting worse, and without a reform, our public finances would crash within 3 years.
And now, zooming out ever so slightly, in your view, in what direction is the Czech Republic heading after this election? What have we learned so far about the political landscape, and what do people want?
Probably people want to go out for a beer. And I know it sounds as a joke, but that's an unfortunate reality, because basically you don't see anybody calling for significant reforms, and nobody here is calling for big pension reforms, because it will be painful. Mm-hmm. It will be painful for people, even those who are now 25 to 30. Nobody's calling for a major healthcare reform, because it will mean maybe, you know, changing where's your nearest hospital, and maybe you need to travel more. So I think really people want somebody who will promise them it will still be fine, we'll do little tweaks to keep it going, we'll postpone the big discussions maybe for the next election cycle. And that's why you've seen the Czech Republic in the last 8 years actually quite stagnating. And the only thing that actually brought us forward a little bit was the COVID crisis, when we needed to digitalize the country. But after that, nothing much has been changing.
But do you think that this lack of change is sustainable? I mean...
No, it's not, and I think that's a big mistake of the politicians, because in the end they will be forced to make a healthcare reform, they will be forced to make a pension reform. Now they still have the liberty of taking their pace, making decisions how they want to do the reform. If they let the system crash, again, there will be no choices. They will need to simply cut, cut and cut.
So I guess that we are at the crossroads, and let's hope that now the Czech Republic heads in the right direction. And that was Tomáš Prouza offering his perspective now on the challenges facing the Czech Republic after the vote, and from the coalition building to economic reforms. The outcome will definitely shape not only domestic policy but Prague's place in Europe. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
And I'm Alexandra Bolenda in Prague for TVP World.